They're back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became the Shadow Dragon Monarch loved by Anko, Tsunade, Konan, Kaguya and Kushina. Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Forest of Death, Chunin exams. Fuyumi sees the multitude of genin hunters waiting for the round to begin. She sees TEAM7 with her brother and Sasuke scoping the competition with his Sharingan glowing, Sasuke-kun. Kawaki-kun, Ino crows, suddenly. Team 8 ignores the display of Team 10 and find a place to wait. The mood was tense but Fuyumi could see teams from some of the other great villages like Iwa, Kumo, Suna, even smaller villages like Taki, Kusa, and AIM. So you're the daughter of the Yondaime and brother of Kawaki Namikaze, a voice says. Fuyumi turns to a young man with fair skin, royal blue eyes and messy teal hair. He wears black shorts and boots with a navy sweater under a two-tone shirt of black and royal blue. Who are you? Fuyumi asks. My name is Kato Kawanami and looking at you compared to Kawaki. You aren't that impressive, the now named Kato says and Fuyumi narrows her eyes. Kato brushes past Fuyumi with a smirk as the Uzushio team finally enters and many were giving them the side eye. A large puff of smoke erupts in front of the room, revealing a tall but scarred man in a gray uniform and black trench coat. Welcome one and all to round 1 of the Chunin exams. My name is Ibiki Morino and I am the proctor for this round, the man declares. The genin murmur amongst themselves as Ibiki orders them to sit in assigned seats with Fuyumi sitting by Wasabi. The first round is simple, Ibiki says and points to the paper being passed out by the other proctors. Now only teams with a combined score of 250 points will pass to the next round. Meaning each member must score a minimum of 83 points. Cheating is prohibited and if you are caught, 10 points are deducted, Ibiki explains. Fuyumi stares at the test and the questions were a challenge but not out of her wheelhouse. Now begin. You have 1 hour, Ibiki states. Fuyumi picks her pencil and starts on her test as the genin do the same, some even cheating as Hinata and Neji use their Byakugan. Sasuke uses his Sharingan as Tayuya mouths the answers for Wasabi to hear, while Ino uses her clan's techniques. Some of the genin were caught and others were not but Ibiki plays some mind games with the temperature or subtle music cues. Kanahagakure, Jonin lounge, Naruto sits with his legs crossed and his hands in his pockets with a menthol in his mouth. He wears a long white trench coat with white, wide-leg pants and 2 black belts. The coat is high-collared and the sleeves rolled up with blue and white tessellated cuffs. Underneath the coat is a small, open, lapel-less waistcoat patterned with alternating Uzumaki swirls and lightning bolts over a black turtleneck, lastly a pair of white and black dress spats brogue formal shoes. Many jonin were giving him the side eye but were too put off by him to approach him, save one as Kurenai approaches. Hello Naruto-san, Kurenai greets. Naruto lifts his sunglasses and gives her an eye smile. Hello Kurenai. Good to see on this the day of my team's exams, he says. I'm curious as why you yourself accompanied a team, Kurenai asks. Why indeed but why not give back? I want to help my country, Naruto says and snaps his fingers before reaching into his coat. Oh my mother wishes to see you again. So she invited you and Fuyumi to my 18th birthday party in 3 months on November 5th, Naruto says, handing Kurenai the envelope. Thank you but we'll have to seek Hokage-sama's approval, Kurenai says and Naruto smiles. I'm sure he'll agree, Naruto says and tilts his head. So who is the first round proctor, he asks. Ibiki Morino. I feel for them, Asuma says, walking up with Kakashi and Guy. I'm not too worried, my team will be fine. My wife Anko is head of RT&I department, Naruto says. Are you Naruto Uzumaki? A voice says and all of them see a beautiful blonde with an asymmetrical bob and ice blue eyes. I am and you are, Naruto asks. Samui Kiryu, the woman says. She wears a white long sleeve, high-collar dress shirt and white skirt with black trim, black knee-highs and heeled boots. So what do I owe the pleasure? Naruto asks, feigning curiosity. Can we speak in private? Samui replies. Naruto slowly rises to his full height. Lead the way. Excuse us, he says and follows Samui. So what do you wish to speak with me about? Ms. Kiryu, Naruto asks. You may not have been informed but Lord Tsuchi has decided to offer me up to you in exchange for a collaboration between your Espada Guild and Kumo's Thunder Guild, Samui explains. Naruto lifts his sunglasses to forehead and rubs his eyes with an amused laugh. You would be the second to offer herself up for her country. So I'll say what I said to her but first I want your honest opinion, he says. Samui blinks a few times and clears her throat. Being honest you are good looking but it's not cool to offer myself to someone with a wife and it would seem 4 mistresses, she says. Well we will take our time and if things don't work out, we go our separate ways with no issue between our countries. Sounds good, Naruto says. That sounds cool, Samui said, and Naruto extends his hand for her to shake. Chunin exams RD1. Those of you that scored correctly passed, Ibiki declares, and some of the genin murmur. Another puff of smoke erupts as a jonin appears with brown hair and glasses, wearing the standard attire with his Hitai-8 like a bandana and an orange neck warmer with white stripes. My name is Mujino and I'll be the proctor for the second round, which will take place in the Forest of Death, the jonin says. Mujino leads the genin to the forest and turns to explain the rules. This second round is quite simple. You have to reach the center tower in 3 days. He starts and pulls out an armband. One member of your team is given this armband. You must protect this armband as this will be your only way into the tower. Mujino continues, and several murmur as another nondescript jonin approaches with a stack of slips in her arms. All teams must sign these waivers as killing will be involved. Do what is inside gates, the wildlife, or even your fellow genin, as this is a survival mission, Mujino said, and several gasp. Do we have to clear any of the gates? Fuyumi asks. Only if you feel your team can. The core goal is to reach the tower in 3 days with your armband, Mujino explains. The jonin hands out the waivers and each team scatters to read them over. We should focus on reaching the tower. Gates should be the least of our concerns, Hinata said, and Shino agrees. We do not know the level of the gate. It would best to avoid them, Shino says. What about other teams? Fuyumi asks. We destroy their bands and move on, Hinata replies, and both nod, signing their waivers. Hinata brings them to the tent and she gets the armband but also their assigned gate. 10 minutes, one proctor said, once the 3 were at the gate. Team 8 check their gear and psych themselves up for this round. Before long the buzzer sounds and the gate opens. Hinata takes the lead as Shino watches the right and left, with Fuyumi taking the rear. The giant and dense trees make the forest seem darker despite being around noon. Can you see the tower? Fuyumi asks. Hinata activates her Byakugan as veins bugle around her eyes and down her cheeks. No, but we're close to a team. Their chakra is well below ours. Shino, unleash your swarm and we'll incapacitate them, she says. Shino spreads her arms as her Kikaichu swarm spreads out as Fuyumi draws a kunai. Team 8 reach the clearing and see 3 Konoha genin fighting off the swarm but failing. It would be in your best interest to surrender your band, Hinata says, looking down at them. A kunoichi with a nondescript build and long brown hair quickly tosses the band on the ground as the swarm returns to their hive. Good job. Fuyumi, get the band, Hinata orders. Fuyumi sighs and drops down to pick up the band as the 3 genin look at her with disappointment. I hope you can measure up to our father and no longer disgrace his name, Fuyumi thought, remembering Kawaki's words. She slips on the band and follows her team further into the forest. Even older genin look at me like that, Fuyumi thought. Forest of Death. TEAM-0. Wasabi sniffs the air as they move through the forest with Tsuyu having the armband on her right arm. Iwabi was looking right and left as the forest was teeming with mutated animals and low-level gates. Should we enter a gate? Iwabi says, but his teammates shake their heads. Why risk it? Wasabi says. I would agree, Tsuyu says, but her eyes narrow. Team ahead. Laying an ambush, she adds. Iwabi takes the lead and brings out his bow staff as a fireball charges them, but he parries it up as Tsuyu brings out an arrow. There, Tsuyu said, firing and hitting a Taki genin in the arm. Team -0 land in a small clearing as Wasabi rushes on all fours. The larger of the Taki genin rushes her with his arms enchanted by the caster of the group. Take this, he roars, slamming a punch into Wasabi, but she explodes into a log. Doden. Stone hammer, Iwabi shouts, slamming the stone hammer into the tanker. The caster attempts to buff him, but Tsuyu clips her with 2 arrows, paralyzing her as Wasabi goes for the last member. He has slender build, wearing black pants and boots with a silver coat. Sweden. Ms. Oripa, he shouts, firing a stream of water. Wasabi leaps and dodges several water bullets, but the Taki genin gasps as he's pulled underground by Iwabi. Surrender, Iwabi says, pointing his bow staff. Fine, he says. Wasabi takes the band from the caster and Iwabi releases the leader. We won't forget this, the leader hisses, as they leap away. Iwabi spins his bow staff with a sigh. So do we head straight to the tower or a gate? He asks. We don't know the level of their gates, Wasabi says, sighing at his one-track mind, and Tsuyu nods. In the shrubbery Team 10 were watching, Mendoku say. To run into them so quickly, Shikamaru said. We can take them, Ino says. Shikamaru narrows his eyes as Tsuyu was staring right where they were. No, we can't. They were trained by Naruto and the Espada Guild. For now we let them pass, he says and sighs in relief when they do. We got lucky, Shikamaru said. How so? Choji asks, as they get to their feet. The pink-hair kunoichi was looking right at us. She must be a censor, Shikamaru explains, shocking his teammates. In another part of the forest, Sasuke watches from above with Sakura as Kawaki faces off with a team from IWA. The leader of the team has a cocky look on his face, wearing the standard IWA attire. It consists red outfit with his right sleeve missing, a lapel on the left side and a black flak vest with mesh armor around his ankles. So you're the youngest son of the Kiroi Senko, the leader says. Kawaki tilts his head with a disinterested look on his face. So what if I am, he says. Then die, the leader roars, creating several rock spears. They pierce Kawaki but he turns into a log. Mokuden, Jubaku Iso, he utters, creating several binding branches. That's the Mokuden like Shadaime-sama, Sakura says. So he's capable of that, huh? Sasuke thought. Kawaki approaches the bound IWA team and raises his bandaged left, touching the branches. Maiden. Maikai no Ida, Kawaki utters. The IWA team scream but only for a moment as the branches change and pierce their bodies from all sides. Sakura covers her mouth in horror as Sasuke was intrigued. At least he won't hold me back, he thought, glancing to Sakura. Kawaki snatches the armband from the lone kunoichi of the three and slips it in his bandaged arm. This prosthetic channels the Maiden well, he thought. Should we continue to the tower? Kawaki says, looking up at Sasuke. We'll take Minor Gate, Sasuke said, dropping down with a pale Sakura. Whatever. Lead the way, fearless leader, Kawaki said, and TEAM-7 continue into the forest. However, unbeknownst to Team 7 and the now deceased IWA team, Naruto was watching from within his barrier. How macabre, he muses, dropping down. He approaches the macabre sculpture that were once three genin. He's cold-blooded, Zetsue comments, as Naruto slips a menthol into his mouth. Naruto sparks up and blows a stream of smoke. He's Konoha's great future. He needs to be ruthless as father once was, he says. Your sarcasm is showing, Zetsue jokes, giggling. Sorry, but Konoha has created their own Frankenstein's monster, Naruto says. Zetsue folds her arms with a snooty look. Actually, Frankenstein was the doctor, she says, in a snobby manner. Naruto throws his head back with laughter as growls echo around him. The locals are hungry, he says, as Zetsue vanishes. Naruto's quicksword comes to life and frees the corpses as he vanishes in a swirling of flames. From the dense forest a pack mutated wolves emerge and go for the bodies. Mei sighs as steps out a lingerie store in Konoha's market district. Not a bad selection but expensive, she thought. She wears a white sweater dress with black leggings and a dark blue mini jacket, along with knee-high boots. The auburn-hair kunoichi admires Konoha's splendor, but it was certainly different from Kiri and Uzushio. The people give off a bit of arrogance and extolled about Konoha's strength. I wonder if Naruto knows about this, Kawaki, Mei thought. She looks down at the bag in her hands and a small blush dusts her cheeks. Over the past few months, she and Naruto went numerous dates, even group dates, and the young daimyo was attentive to each of them. She trained with them and learned much, even sparring with Kushina. So Mei decided that she and Naruto would go all the way. So what's in the bag? A voice says, and Mei jerks, as Naruto was standing behind her. Nothing. So how are Hyuga and her team doing? Mei asks. The second round has started. I need to meet them at the center tower, Naruto says. The pair make their way towards their hotel as people were whispering about Naruto. They are not transparent about you, Mei states. Of course not. I am the son of their Yondaime, but I'm betraying his memory by siding with my mother. Same could be said for Fuyumi, Naruto says. The people should be proud of your accomplishments, Mei states, as they reach their hotel. You would think, but those accomplishments are not for Konoha and Fire Country, Naruto says, as they reach the elevator. The pair ride up to 10th floor in their penthouse room. So where do you want to have dinner? Naruto says. Surprise me, Mei says, and Naruto faintly smiles. Well, they have a restaurant downstairs. So we don't have to go far, Naruto says. Casual or formal? Mei asks. Naruto cups his chin thought and tilts his head to look Mei over. Let's show off with a little formal, he says, and Mei smiles. About an hour later, Naruto and Mei enter the downstairs restaurant to gasps and murmurs from various guests. Naruto is wearing white slacks with black dress shoes, matching black dress shirt with a white tie and matching white suit vest. Mei has the little black dress but dark blue in color with spaghetti straps, white stockings and black heels with her auburn hair up and some jewelry. Her makeup is light with dark eyeshadow and blue lipstick. How can I help you? The waiter said, a placating smile on her face. We need a table for two in a private booth, Naruto says, and the waiter nods, escorting them to the VIP section. The restaurant was fairly quiet with a band playing soft music and a small dance floor. Anything special? Naruto asks Mei. The pair take their seats as Mei shakes her head. Drinks to start off, the waiter says. Water with a touch of, Mei says. Iced tea, Naruto says, as he looks over the menu. I think I'll get the grilled fish and the salad, Mei says. I need protein, so steak for me medium well, Naruto says and the waiter nods, writing things down. I will return with your drinks, the waiter said. Do you wanna dance? Naruto asks. I wouldn't mind, Mei replies, taking Naruto's hand. He leads her to the small dance floor and slips his right hand behind her lower back, while Mei raises his left hand. The pair slowly sway to the rhythm as people watch but they ignore them. Anko and others will be jealous that you are dancing so close me, Naruto jokes and Mei scoffs. No they won't. Well Kaguya because she's not dancing with me, Mei says and Naruto chuckles. True and our drinks are here, Naruto says and Mei sighs, as they head back to their table. Your meals should be served soon, the waiter said and Naruto nods. Any progress on what weapon you want or gear? Naruto asks, after taking a sip of tea. I am not one for weapons but something to further enhance my Kekkei Genkais, Mei replies and Naruto slowly nods, in thought. I've noticed that you can change your body similar to the Hizuka's hydrification or Konan's Kamadan, Naruto says. Not to their extent but enough to be a force to be reckoned with, Mei says and Naruto chuckles. The waiter comes with their food and the pair enjoy their meals with small talk as the genin brave the forest. Forest of Death. Central Tower, 3 days later. Fuyumi stands with her fellow genin and notices how many passed, her fellow rookies, a team from AIM, Suna, Uzu, IWA and Kumo. Mujino stands next to the Hokage with the Jonin of the genin present. The room was large with a second-level balcony and behind the Hokage were a set of stone arms in the ram sign. Congratulations on passing the second round of the Chunin exams, Mujino starts. Fuyumi and her team managed to make it on the first day, her brother's team not long behind them. Team 7 even cleared a gate as well with Kawaki gaining an arm-length gauntlet on his right arm. Now seeing that so many teams passed, we will need to hold a preliminary round to further thin the numbers, Mujino continues, shaking Fuyumi from her thoughts. Why? Hiba shouts. Many nobles and important guests will be coming and I'm sure they do not wish to watch so many matches, Mujino explains and a few genin grumble. Mujino is correct. These exams are a substitute for war, Hiruzen says and goes on to give a long speech about the true meaning of the exams. Hokage-sama is right. Now I will turn things over to the proctor for the preliminary, Mujino says and a swirl of wind appears. Hello prospective Chunin. I am Mira, the proctor greets. She has dark skin with black and red hair, purple eyes and wearing standard Konoha attire. The wall opens and a large board emerges, matches will be chosen at random and you will have one-on-one matches. You will fight until one submits. I call the match or death but such an act will be frowned upon and discouraged. Now does anyone wish to quit before we begin? Mira explains and no one does. The board begins to cycle through names and it stops on Ajisai of AIM and Sakura of Konoha. Alright you can move to the second level as Ajisai and Sakura remain, Mira says. The genin make their way up as the Hokage and Jonin do the same. Are both participants ready? Mira says and both nod, then begin, she adds. Sakura has a haughty look on her face as she was thinking of impressing Sasuke and Kawaki, which would lead to having a three-way with them. Ajisai on the other hand is blank and ready to show everyone the power of AIM. She is a young woman with purple hair in an onion-like bun style and light green eyes with black pupils. Watch me, Ajisai thought. She wears light purple neck collar kimono jacket with a brown-orange sash around her waist and lavender pants, her hidaite covered by her bangs. Sakura starts things with a fling of several shuriken but Ajisai dodges, weaving signs to ram. Several Jonin and genin gasp as parts of Ajisai break down into paper, peeling from her body. So Konan passed her technique to someone, Naruto thought. Ajisai fires several paper shuriken towards Sakura but the pinkett dodges, tossing a few kunai but Ajisai explodes into paper and swirls around Sakura. You would be inclined to surrender. These papers are sharp enough to kill, Ajisai says, seemingly everywhere in the torrent of paper. Sakura gnashes her teeth in anger but surrenders as Ajisai reforms opposite her. Winner Ajisai Homonda, Mira declares. Ajisai returns to her teammates Fuyo and Suiren along with Sensei Kotaro. Sakura returns to her fellow rookies with a downtrodden but angry look. Sucks for you forehead, Ino sneers and Sakura shoots her a dark look. That was a strange technique. She turned herself into paper, Asuma says. It's called Kamadan, Naruto says. Kamadan, Kurenai says, confused. Naruto lights his menthol and takes a small drag, it's not easy to learn. You need precise control and knowledge of origami, he explains but sees Ajisai looking exhausted. How do you know that? Kakashi asks but Naruto faintly smiles. That would be spoiling, Naruto says. The board cycles through the names to Sasuke and Taratsuchi of IWA. He is young man of a stocky build with a black crew cut and dark eyes, wearing the standard IWA attire. The match was lackluster as Sasuke cruised to victory with his Sharingan and family's Interceptor Fist, and Taratsuchi stood no chance. Go Sasuke-kun, Ino and Sakura crow but quickly glare at one another. The next match was Neji against Hanoki of Kumo. She is of slender build with strawberry blonde hair and purple eyes. She wears a gray kimono blouse that gathers at the waist to give off the appearance of a sash, matching pants with kunoichi boots. She also wears a one-strap flak jacket and arm guards as well as shin guards of a Kumo variety. It would be wise of you to surrender. You cannot win, Neji said, activating his Byakugan. Hanoki remains impassive and clutches her staff. Maybe, but I won't know if I don't try, she says. Neji slips into his clan's Juken as Mira calls for them to begin. Hanoki spins her staff and slams it in the ground as several bolts of lightning fire, but Neji dodges. Neji closes the gap, but Hanoki swings her staff, forcing him to parry, but she lets go of it and connects with a palm strike. Seems I shouldn't give up, Hanoki said, as Neji back leaps. Hanoki slams her staff again and large array forms. Perhaps you should surrender, she says, but Neji rushes towards her. Chain lightning cage, Hanoki shouts. Neji jerks as chains made of lightning shoot from the array, holding him in place unable to move. Now please surrender, Hanoki said. Neji struggles to move, but Hanoki increases the voltage to keep him in place. I surrender, he hisses. Hanoki releases the chains as Neji glares but returns to team. I hope this a humbling experience, she says, but Neji ignores her. She seems strong, Fuyumi says, and Hinata shoots her a glare. Perhaps, but keep your opinion to yourself. She is from a foreign country, Hinata says. Even so, but one shouldn't stick to one path, Fuyumi says, and Hinata scoffs. That's why you're a disgrace to your clan, Hinata says. Hinata, Kurenai says. It is fine, sensei, Fuyumi says, but sees the board cycles to her and Kato. Fuyumi Namikaze versus Kato Kawanami. Kato has a confident look on his face as Fuyumi makes her way down, leaving her swords on the balcony. Many of the genin and jonin were watching in anticipation, while the Hokage shifts his gaze from Fuyumi to Naruto. Kawaki was stealing glances to Naruto, but the redhead's gaze was on their sister. Why did you leave your swords? Kato says. Fuyumi pulls on her gloves with a stretch of her joints. I won't use them on a comrade, she says. That's foolish of you, Kato says. Mira stands between the pair and raises her hand. Let the match between Fuyumi Namikaze versus Kato Kawanami. Begin, Mira declares. Kato shoots forward with a smirk on his face, but Fuyumi meets him with a flurry of strikes, Fuyumi blocking evenly and cleanly as she catches Kato's right fist. He sends a high kick, but Fuyumi catches it under her arm, before letting go of his fist and slamming a palm to his chest. Kato staggers back, but Fuyumi connects with a front dropkick, knocking Kato down, but he scampers back to his feet and weaves signs to Tiger. Sweden. Mizwame Nabara, Kato declares, spewing a highly viscous amount of water. Fuyumi dodges the sticky water as Kato weaves more signs, but she fires several kunai, forcing him to break right. Sweden. Mizwame Teppadama, Kato shouts, firing several sticky bullets. She should have ended this by now, Kawaki says, watching her dodge the bullets. Fuyumi weaves signs to Ox as Kato gasps, due numerous rose petals erupting around the blonde, but she weaves more signs to Snake. Megan. Hanagasumi, Fuyumi whispers. Kato gasps as he was standing on a large flower petal, but it explodes, knocking him out and crumpling to the ground. Winner. Fuyumi Namikaze, Mujino declares. You were saying Kawaki, Kakashi says, and Kawaki scoffs, folding his arms. The board cycles again and it comes to Wasabi and Suiren as she wears her Hitai 8 in a bandana style. She has a slim face, covered by a black mask, and attire as a light purple poncho over a violet kimono with a brown-orange sash, and bandages around her arms and hands. Suiren starts the match by using her Kurisamegakure no Jutsu, but Wasabi counters with a blast of wind. However, hidden in the wind were spider string that ensnares Suiren with a charge of electricity from her gloves. I surrender, Suiren says, and Mira calls an end to the match. Wasabi approaches Suiren and extends her hand, to which Suiren takes it. Let's fight again, Wasabi says. I would like that, Suiren says, and the pair return to their teams. Hiba was glaring at Wasabi, but mainly for her cat-like nature, but his name was called for the next match with the IWA kunoichi named Kana. She has a slender build with dark hair and eyes, wearing the standard IWA attire but having both sleeves and a skirt with mesh leggings. Let the match begin, Mira declares. Hiba starts off strong as his hair and eyebrows turn white, his eyes glow brightly as his muscles increase in mass. This immediately puts Kana off guard and she quickly surrenders, much to the shock of a few, but it would inflate Hiba's ego. The next match was Lee vs Hanoki's teammate Amansui, a tall and lanky young man wearing the standard Kumo attire of gray and white. The match was quick as Lee used his speed and taijutsu to counter Amonsui's kenjutsu. The board cycles to Ino and Hanoki's third teammate Omoi. He has short, spiky, white hair and dark eyes accentuated with eyelashes curving upwards from the corners. He wears a dark outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage hand guards and shin guards. She's of the Yamanaka clan. Omoi starts and continues muttering, so much that Ino wins the match by using her clan's Shintenshin no Jutsu. His overthinking is always his downfall, Samui muses, shaking her head. Hanoki sees Omoi approaching with a forlorn expression. You'll do better next time, she says. Omoi blushes and starts muttering again, but Hanoki grabs his face, before kissing him, which shuts him up. The board cycles again to fall on Kawaki and Fuyo of AIM. Many were ready to see the second son of the Kiroi Senko in action. Let's get this over with, Kawaki says, as Fuyo stands across from him. She has long black hair that covers the entire left side of her face and purple eyes, her hidaite covered by her bangs around her forehead. She wears a violet long-sleeve dress with purple pants and shinobi sandals, also a light violet sash draped over her right shoulder and a yellow choker with an umbrella. Begin, Mira shouts. Fuyo shoots forward and tosses her umbrella up into a flash of signs to ram. Senbon shower, she shouts. The umbrella opens and fires a barrage off Senbon, but Kawaki simply clenches his gauntlet, punching the air and creating gust of air to knock them off course. It seems to work like a piston. Similar to Big O, Naruto thought, remembering the manga from his original world. Kawaki flashes several signs and slams his hands into the ground, turning the earth into mud and catching Fuyo by the legs. Fuyo fires several water bullets, but Kawaki raises his left hand, using his Maiden to absorb her attacks. Surrender or I'll turn you into a stain on the floor, Kawaki says, coldly and venomously. I surrender, Fuyo says, and Kawaki doesn't bother to free her. Mira releases Fuyo and she returns to her team as Kawaki returns to his amid the cheering of the fangirls. The board cycles through to Tayuya and Shino, with both making their way down. Both fighter ready. Begin, Mira declares. Shino lets some of her swarm move along her face as Tayuya raises her left arm, creating her bow, much to shock a few in attendance. What is that? Sakura shouts. Some members of the Uzumaki clan can create chakra constructs. Like swords or in Tayuya's case arrows, Wasabi says. I hear the Uzukage could create chains, Shikamaru says. She could restrain a Biju with them, Naruto muses, shocking the genin. Shino unleashes her swarm in a large cloud as Tayuya fires an arrow, but much to Shino's shock and the other genin, the arrow multiples and explodes into the swarm. I'd advise you to surrender. I would hate to destroy more of your hive, Tayuya says, and Shino narrows her eyes behind her glasses. You are underestimating me, Shino says, but Tayuya shakes her head, before clipping Shino with several arrows. No, I'm not, Tayuya says, as Shino collapses. Winner Tayuya Uzumaki, Mira declares. Medical personnel come for Shino and the board cycles through to Yodo Susuna of Suna and Araya Susuna of Suna. I surrender, Araya shouts, much to his sister's chagrin. He is a young man with brown hair styled into a spiked ponytail with a white and purple Hanya-like mask having the Suna symbol. He also wears a beige jacket, brown pants and black calf-length shinobi sandals. Coward, Yodo comments. She has thigh-length blonde hair and gray eyes with fair skin, wearing pink jacket and black tank top with red pants, Suna-style sandals and black gloves. He knows how strong you are, their teammate Sayuri Akasora and daughter of Sasori of the Red Sands says. She has fair skin and messy red hair with green eyes and an almost dreamy look on her face. She wears black shorts and thigh-high black socks with sandals, a red kimono jacket with a black undershirt, and carries bundle on her back. The next match is Choji Akamichi versus Hinata Hyuga, Mira declares, and Choji immediately surrenders, much to Asuma's chagrin. The board then cycles once again to Shikamaru and Sayuri. Mendokuse. A match with a girl, Shikamaru thought, making his way down. Sayuri does the same and the genin pair stare each other down, the dreamy look leaving Sayuri's face. Begin, Mira shouts. Sayuri shrugs off her bundle and channel her chakra to reveal it as a skeletal head puppet with bull horns and a muscular body. Let's do our best, she says, attaching her chakra strings. Shikamaru quickly unleashes his Kajimane, but Sayuri back leaps to avoid it, sending her puppet known as Bull. Shikamaru avoids the puppet and tosses several kunai, but Sayuri dodges. Mendokuse. She's dangerous, Shikamaru thought. Fuyumi keeps her gaze slightly on the match as she makes her way towards Naruto, but Kawaki gets in her path. Please move. I want to speak to Naruto, she says. Why? Kawaki says, glancing to see Sayuri's puppet now has a long broad sword. He's our brother and I don't need a reason to speak to him, Fuyumi says, moving past her younger brother. Fuyumi sees Naruto poking Tayuya's cheek as the pink-haired Uzumaki has her headphone over her ears. Hey, Fuyumi says and Naruto stops. Hey, Naruto says, wearing white jeans with black harness boots and a long-sleeve black shirt that clings to his body. So, I was wondering if you could help me with something, Fuyumi asks. Naruto leans on the wall with his arms folded and his gaze on the match as Shikamaru catches Sayuri's puppet with his Kajimane. However, Sayuri counters with another puppet, but this didn't use strings and it was similar to Gaara's Shrieker. Sure, what do you need? I hope it's not information on my team, Naruto says, and the three look to her, but Fuyumi waves her hands. And no, it's a gate I want to clear. Gigi allowed me to do so, but I needed someone other than Kurenai-sensei to clear it, Fuyumi says. Crafty old man, Zetsue comments. Gigi, Iwabi asks, she means the Hokage, and what sort of gate needs someone other than Kurenai? Naruto asks but sees Shikamaru soaked in water and Mira relaying Sayuri was the winner as Shikamaru forfeited. Looks like I'm last, Iwabi says, as he makes his way down as his opponent Seki does the same. He has fair skin, blue-green eyes and dull brown hair with bangs covering the right side of his face. He also wears a standard IWA-style shinobi attire, a red Hitai-8 with a black glove on his left hand. Well, Gigi didn't give any specifics, but he said it would good for me, Fuyumi says, but holds her laughter as Iwabi defeats Seki with one strike of his bow staff. Looks like you're needed, Naruto says, pointing as Amira calls all the genin winners. I'll find you after, Fuyumi says, and makes her way down to stand with the winners. Congratulations on your victories in the preliminaries. Now we have a more structured number, Mujino starts and turns things over to Hiruzen. Now, the final round of the Chunin exams will take place in front of the many important guests from many nations, and each of you will have 1 month to further hone your skills. Also, it will be adequate time for the various nobles and guests to arrive, Hiruzen starts. Could you better explain things, Iwabi says, and his teammates face palm. Well, time is need to analyze your adversary. Analyze what you've witnessed from your fellow genin and properly prepare against them. However, that is not the case for the final round, as some of you have not revealed your skills to your rivals. So you have a month to properly prepare. Now each of you take a slip from Mira, Hiruzen finishes. Mira allows each to take a slip from the box as Mujino holds up a clipboard. Now each of you tell me your number, he says, and each do so. Alright, the matches will be Wasabi Izuno vs Kiba Inuzuka, Ino Yamanaka vs Ajisai Homanda, Might Rock Lee vs Naruto Uzumaki, Iwabi Ueno vs Kawaki Namikaze, Sayuri Akasora vs Fuyumi Namikaze, Sasuke Uchiha vs Yodo Susuna, and lastly Hinata Hyuga vs Hanoki Ryu, Mujino states, and the genin start to size each up. Hiruzen gives another boring speech to the genin and dismisses them. Can you meet me tomorrow? Fuyumi says, approaching Naruto. As after 12, alright, I need to take my team to Homonji, Naruto says, and Fuyumi slowly nods, excusing herself. Why are we going to Homonji? Yuya asks. Naruto slips a menthol into his mouth with a thin smile. You'll be training with Anko and Kaguya, he says, and Iwabi turns white, causing Naruto to chuckle. Naruto, Wasabi says, pointing. Naruto glances behind him to see Kawaki approaching, and a clone pops to life to escort them out the forest. Go get some rest. We leave at 7 in morning, he says, and the three genin nod. Naruto pockets his hands after he lights his cigarette. It's like looking into a mirror, but not, he says, looks down at his younger brother. The two look nearly identical in terms of hairstyle and body type, so what is this little bro? Come to mean mug your big bro, Naruto says, and Kawaki narrow his eyes. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Jiraiya talks a lot about you, Kawaki says. Naruto exhales some smoke but sucks it up into his nose. Of course he does. Dad was his prized student and SS class hunter, but also Hokage. I bet he fucked all sorts of women because of that, he says. I could care less. I've seen what I wanted and I am not impressed, Kawaki says. Naruto grins with his draconic eyes on Kawaki. I could say the same, he says, and Kawaki whips around, but Naruto was gone. Naruto strolls through the village with his eyes closed. Konoha has done good work with Kawaki, he thought. Genetic enhancement, gene manipulation to age him up and giving him a prosthetic. Orochimaru's handiwork, Zetsue comments. The prosthetic probably comes from Amato Futures. Karen is hard up to get her hands on their technology, Naruto thought, but stops as Shirahoshi Senju was in his path. The sultry beauty looks the Uzumaki air up and down with a glint in her dark eyes. When sensei told me you were here for the exams, I knew I needed to see the son of Minato in the flesh, Shirahoshi says. Ah, so, you're Kawaki's mother, Naruto says, and Shirahoshi makes a face but covers her mouth to laugh. I simply provided the egg. I didn't want to ruin my figure, Shirahoshi says, but Naruto continues past her. Wait, she says, but Naruto ignores her, causing a scowl to mire her face. Tsunade will get mad at you for seeing a senju, Zetsue says, and Naruto snorts. I said one sentence to her. Tsunade won't get mad, Naruto thought, reaching his hotel. The two-tone Uzumaki makes his way to the top floor of the hotel and opens the door to his team having dinner on his dime. May Goddess Pizza, Hyuga says, a look in her eyes and Naruto's left eye twitches, seeing nearly 10 boxes. Naruto shakes his head and grabs a box for himself and takes a seat next to the Auburn beauty. All three of you are facing Konoha Genin, he starts, biting a piece of pepperoni pizza. Is that bad? May asks but Naruto shakes his head. Not really but it is telling. Konoha has the most in the finals, Naruto says. I got the bowl cut, Hyuga says and Naruto snorts. He's the son of Might Guy and grandson of Might Guy. Both are near legendary martial artists. So don't take him lightly, Naruto says and Hyuga nods. Iwabi has your brother and I got that dog boy, Wasabi says. He looked strong in his fight. Though short, Iwabi comments. And he's younger than you too. Konoha doesn't want to wait to show him off, Naruto says. They seem to look down on Fuyumi. Even though she is the child of their Yondaime as well, May says. Only because she was born after me. If she was born first. They would use that to garner clients and stronger trainers for Konoha. Use her as a beacon for power. So now they've pinned those hopes on Kawaki, Naruto says. So in other words Iwabi shouldn't take him lightly, Hyuga says and Naruto nods, biting into the cheesy crust. He won't hesitate to kill you either, Naruto and his team gasp. He wanted to kill his opponent but didn't because it would make Konoha look bad in the eyes of others. However that could change, so be prepared to forfeit if he does, he adds and Iwabi nods. The group continues to polish off the pizza and the three genin soon retire to their room. Naruto plops on his bed and May sees her last opportunity as she enters the bathroom with a bag. Fuyumi was waiting for Naruto to arrive for lunch to discuss the gate they would be entering. She was wearing casual clothes of a pair of jeans and trainers with a white blouse. Kept you waiting huh? Naruto says and Fuyumi whips around. Naruto was wearing jeans with suspenders hanging at his sides, some work boots and a dark long-sleeve shirt with a medallion around his neck. Fuyumi slowly shakes her head. I just got here, she says. The pair enter the restaurant and get a booth, before ordering a full course of meat and lemonade. So what sort of gate is it? Naruto asks. Well Gigi asked me to handle this with you. He told me it was a C-rank gate in Tanzaku-gai, Fuyumi starts. Naruto cups his chin thought as the waiter brings their lemonade. The old man keeps fishing and using Fuyumi as his pawn, he thought. And she is using it to get you better, Zetsue says. Have you named your other sword yet? Naruto asks. I named it Sakura Dancer, Fuyumi says and Naruto sort of makes a face, as he has a tendency to do the same. Again with Dancer, Naruto says and Fuyumi puffs her cheeks. Well Sakura Dancer can break down into Sakura petals and I can use it to distract my opponents, Fuyumi explains and Naruto tilts his head. That is similar to Captain Kuchiki's Senbon Sakura, Zetsue comments. That's interesting. Perhaps using your skill with Genjutsu in conjunction, Naruto says. The waiter brings their meat and vegetable for the pair to start cooking. Kurenai-sensei said something similar, Fuyumi says. You've got an interesting opponent coming up, Naruto says, taking a piece of meat. Fuyumi slowly nods as she grills some veggies. She's the daughter of Akasuna no Sasori. The rumors say he took down a nation with his puppets, she says. You would be right, so you need be prepared, Naruto says and Fuyumi slowly nods. So when do you want to tackle this gate, he adds. We can leave today. I'll need to get changed though, Fuyumi says. Naruto chuckles as the pair continue eating with small talk mixed in, before they leave and head to Fuyumi's place to let the blonde get changed. Is your mother home? Naruto asks. Fuyumi unlocks the door with shake of her head. She took a solo jonin mission to the capital, she says. Take a seat and I'll get ready, Fuyumi adds and Naruto takes a seat in a chair, crossing his legs. Naruto looks around and sees the home has a homely feel to it. She has a good home, he thought, getting up and seeing several photos. One shows a smaller Fuyumi with Kurenai, to Fuyumi graduating the academy. Even though she is the daughter of a cage, she lives a simple life, Zetsue comments and Naruto mentally nods. Naruto places the picture frame down and retakes his seat with a sigh. She's not good enough for them, he thought. Kept you waiting huh? Fuyumi says and Naruto chuckles. She wears a pair black cargo pants with knee-high boots and shin guards, a shirt similar to her mom's dress which resembles bandages having a pattern on it similar to rose thorns. Underneath is a orange mesh armor blouse with only the left sleeve visible, black gloves with metal on the knuckles and forearm bracers. Her swords Void Dancer and Sakura Dancer in a harness similar to Naruto's harness. Well let's go clear his gate and win some money, Naruto says and Fuyumi nods, as both leave the apartment. The trip to Tanzaku-gai took only a day and they meet with association personnel. Our sensors have the gate at sea level, the association member says. He has a nondescript build with blonde hair and gray eyes, wearing a suit. Fuyumi adjusts her swords with a nod as Naruto rolls his neck. We'll head in now, she says. Naruto and Fuyumi enter the gate and find themselves canyon of sorts with high rock walls. This is dangerous, Fuyumi says. Right, Naruto says and slips his arm around her waist, before both appear on the top the canyon. The land was rocky but deserted with bones of large animals. Arise, Naruto says and several hawks appear, flying off to scout things. Fuyumi continues to survey the area as Naruto pulls out Stormbreaker. That's from that gate, she says. Yep, I named it Stormbreaker, Naruto says and tilts his head, with his eyes closed. What are you doing? Fuyumi asks. Naruto opens his eyes with a sigh. I can look through my summons and it seems our enemies are coming. They have good senses, he says. How far? Fuyumi asks, as they come to a stop. Naruto points and Fuyumi sees a dust cloud. Not far, he says, as more soldiers arise and they include Tyrant. Archers, Naruto shouts. The archer shadows take aim as Fuyumi sees a group of muscular figures running in the distance. They look humanoid with rough skin and pig-like faces, wearing different types of light to heavy armor. Fire, Naruto shouts and they open fire. Fuyumi draws Void Dancer as Naruto twirls his axe. Ready, he says and Fuyumi nods. Well, let's do this, he adds, both sprinting forward. Naruto reaches the orcs first and swings his axe with two hands, through one and dodges another's swing into a spinning wheel kick. Futon. Wind Scar, Fuyumi shouts, cutting down several orcs. One in heavy armor and an ornate shield slams its foot and creates a shockwave, knocking Fuyumi off balance but she recovers and draws Sakura Dancer to cast an illusion. The tanker orc swings its shield at the petals but it has no effect and Fuyumi uses Void, slicing off its head. It slams to the ground and Fuyumi gasps as the shield affixes to her left arm, creating a gauntlet to her shoulder. Cool, Fuyumi thought, calling Sakura back as several orcs attempt to attack her. Futon. Severing Void, Fuyumi shouts, cutting them down. Another shielder attacks from her left but the gauntlet created the ornate shield to block its attack and Fuyumi cuts it down with Void enhanced by her Futon affinity. Fuyumi turns as Naruto leaps with white energy courses through him and Stormbreaker, before crashing down and creating a large shockwave of debris. Fuyumi blocks with her new shield to keep the debris cloud from her eyes. Sorry about that, Naruto says, appearing behind her. It's okay. Like it, Fuyumi says, showing off her gauntlet shield. Looks cool, Naruto says and brings out his Clydesdale but another small horse. Climb on, she'll do the rest, Naruto says, climbing on his Clydesdale. Fuyumi slowly climbs on the second horse as she neighs a few times, before she takes off in a light gallop. My scouts have found the boss. It's not far away but there is another wave coming, Naruto says. Fuyumi looks to see a line of horsemen arise with long lances as the wave of orcs approach on the back of cat-like creatures. Behind her and Naruto were the orcs now as shadow soldiers along with the other soldiers. Be ready, Naruto shouts. Fuyumi draws Void and brings out her shield as Naruto's wave crashes into the orc wave. Those killed were brought back as shadows. Is that the boss? Fuyumi thought. It was wearing black gothic armor with whited-out eyes and long horns, commanding a chariot with a large wolf having bull-like horns. Naruto gallops forward towards the boss as the wolf fires flames from its maw, causing Naruto to leap and the flames engulf the horse. Naruto lands with a skid as several orcs attack from all sides. Fuyumi urges her horse forward and draws Sakura Dancer to send the petals to distract the wolf. Megan. Hanagasumi, Fuyumi declares, knocking out the wolf. It causes the boss to fly off the chariot and Fuyumi rushes him with Void at the ready but it flexes its aura. Chaos Eater. It roars, sending what looks like dark red snakes with glowing eyes. Fuyumi dodges and cuts into them with Void but the boss closes the gap with its large butcher knife-like blade. Feed me more, it hisses, swing down but Naruto appears and blocks with Stormbreaker. Fuyumi appears behind with a shunshin and her body glowing yellow. Futon Kenjutsu, Gatatsu, she utters, piercing the boss's head. Ikatsu, Naruto utters, blowing out the boss's chest. The siblings shunshin back as the boss crashes to the ground with a dust up. Arise, Naruto utters, bringing back the boss and wolf. Boss has been slain, Naruto says. Yeah, and I gained a new weapon. I'll ask Sennosuke to appraise it for me, Fuyumi says and Naruto nods, as they head to the gate exit. The association personnel were waiting for them and workers head inside to collect anything of value. We're gonna head to an inn to clean up, Fuyumi says and the personnel nod, guiding them to an inn. Naruto and Fuyumi would clean up and spend the rest of the day going to casinos, winning money or the bankrupting several buffets courtesy of Naruto. All you can eat Naruto muses, as they leave Tanzaku Guy and Fuyumi giggles. I can head home by myself, Fuyumi says and Naruto waves his hand. I can escort you back, Naruto says. The pair quickly make their way back to Konoha and arrive in a few hours, thanks to Naruto's summons. See you in a month, Naruto says, flying off on one of his large hawks. Fuyumi waves and checks in at the main gate to make her way to the Hokage Tower. She enters Hiruzen's office and finds the older man at his desk. You've cleared gate, he asks and Fuyumi nods, before giving an oral report but leaving out Naruto's powers. Impressive, and you've gained another weapon. I hope it aids you in your coming matches, Hiruzen says, before dismissing the blonde. Fuyumi bows and excuses herself to make her out of Hiruzen's office, no to go see Sennosuke, she thought, leaving the tower. She makes her way through the village into Sennosuke's shop, finding the man at his counter. Back again, Sennosuke says. Yeah, and I got something new from a gate, Fuyumi says and explains what happened, before bringing out her new shield gauntlet. Sennosuke picks the shield and analyzes with his appraisal but whistles. You got helluva luck, kid, he says. Think so, Fuyumi says. I'll say, this shield will complement you. Sword and shield, Sennosuke says and Fuyumi lights up. I can even add some mana stones as well. It will amplify its defensive abilities, he adds. When you can have it done? I have the Chunin finals in a month, Fuyumi says and Sennosuke chuckles. Don't worry, kid, I'll have it ready in no time, Fuyumi says, and a month would pass in the blink of an eye. Konohagakure was abuzz as civilians, ninja, hunter, nobles and Kage arrive at the village to see the Mangenin fight for promotion but also to show off the power of their respective nations. Konohagakure Chunin Finals Stadium. Fuyumi stands with her fellow finalists inside the large-scale arena with a whole host of people watching, some even watching the event live on Konoha TV. Kurenai wishes the blonde good luck but Fuyumi still felt nervous as so many people were watching and she didn't want to embarrass herself. I can do this, Fuyumi thought. She wears black hybrid Hakama ninja pants with knee-high boots and shin guards, a shirt similar to her mother's dress which resembles bandages having a pattern on it similar to rose thorns. Underneath is a orange mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible, her new gauntlet on her left arm with her swords on her hip. Hiruzen was giving a speech as the other Kage were sitting behind him. Now let the Chunin finals selection begin, Hiruzen declares. The proctor for the finals is a jonin named Genma Shiranui, who has brown, shoulder-length hair which hangs about his face and brown eyes and wears the standard Konoha attire with his Hitai-8 like a bandana. Alright, the first match will be Ino Yamanaka vs Ajisai Homanda, Genma declares. The other genin start to make their way to the waiting booth as both Kunoichi remain. In the stands Konan was sitting with her fellow mistresses, along with Wasabi's family but also her fellow Espada. Ah, did you teach someone your Kamaten? Kaguya asks, a container of strawberry cookies in her lap. Konan snatches one with a nod and Kaguya frowns. She impressed me. So I started teaching her. She very good for a beginner but she has a way to go, Konan says. I doubt she'll lose to Blondie. She doesn't train but relies on her clan's jutsu, Anko comments, remembering her sister wife being Mu stronger. Your student better win. I got money on this, Tsunade says, tapping on her phone and the others frown. Ajisai will do her best, Konan says, as Genma calls for the match to begin. Ino starts the match by creating 3 simple bunshin to distract Ajisai for her Shintention no Jutsu but Ajisai sends 2 kunai through the illusions. Ajisai sprints forward as she weaves signs in her right fist back, Kamaten, Shikigami Senpu, she shouts, punching forward. Many gasp as Ajisai's arm turns to paper and shoots towards Ino as the blonde dodges, shit. Just like she did with Sakura, Ino thought. Makes you wonder if that is a Kekkei Genkei or her hunter ability, Shikamaru says, sitting with some of their fellow rookies. Sakura has a foul look on her face as Ino dodges Ajisai's Shikigami. Who cares, Sakura hisses. Ino's more of a healer than a fighter, Choji says, between chip bites. And she usually has us to back her up, Shikamaru says. Ino attempts to draw closer but Ajisai presses, however the blonde sees that using the Shikigami was taxing on Ajisai. I'll just have to take a chance, Ino thought and slams her staff on the ground to create a flash. Ajisai covers her eyes and Ino sees her door and moves her hands forward. Ninpu, Shintention no Jutsu, Ino shouts, sending her soul forward. Ajisai freezes with wide and flickering eyes as Ino stands over her in her mindscape. I've got you now. So concede, Ino says but gasps, as Ajisai looks her. Her body starts to break down into a thick dark sludge, growing in size as Ino backs away in fright. In the real world Ino screams and falls back on her rear as Ajisai stands over her with a kunai to her throat. I've got you now, so concede, Ajisai says and the blonde concedes. Winner Ajisai Homanda, Genma declares. Damn it, Ino Buddha lost to her too, Sakura snaps. She managed to overcome Ino's signature. She is strong, Shikamaru says. Konan lets a smile crease her lips as Tsunade giggles. That's one so far, Tsunade says, placing her bets for the next match. The next match being Wasabi and Kiba. Woohoo. I'm next, Kiba shouts. I'm gonna show that dog how cats do battle, Wasabi thought. The pair soon stand face to face with Kiba having a cocky look on his face. Let the second match begin, Genma declares. Kiba's brown hair starts to turn white as do his eyes. Beast mimicry, he says. Feline mimicry, Wasabi hisses, as her nails become sharper and both shoot forward into a furious rush of attacks. Wasabi back leaps and dodges a downward strike, which cracks the ground slightly as Kiba laughs. What's the matter, kitty? Can't stand my might, Kiba sneers. Wasabi sends some electricity through her gloves as Kiba leaps and twists like a hurricane. Gatsuga, Kiba roars, crashing down but Wasabi dodges. Raiden. Jaibashi, Wasabi shouts, slamming her hands into the ground. Kiba narrowly dodges the wave of electricity but it catches his right leg. Naya uppercut, Wasabi shouts, connecting with an uppercut to Kiba's jaw. Ugh, Kiba mutters, landing on his back and his jaw stinging. Wasabi smirks this time but maintains her guard as her senses were telling her to be cautious. You, Kiba shouts, getting to his feet. The heir of the Inuzuka grits his teeth as his muscles bulge on his coat, much to the shock of many in the crowd but a collective gasp erupts. Wasabi gasps as Kiba becomes a wolf-human hybrid with white fur over his upper body and a wolf-like head. Scared now little, he says, sneering. A little but you're a little puppy compared to Mama Anko, Wasabi says and weaves signs to Ram. Ninpu. Cat cloak, Wasabi shouts, as dark orange chakra coats her tails, hands, feet and ears. Konan glances to Anko and the daimyo's wife was giggling. I'm not gonna ask, Konan thought. Kiba rockets forward into a leap and uses another Gatsuga but Wasabi charges, adding chakra to her left arm and the chakra enlarges to swipe at Kiba. Kiba thought, skidding to a halt. Wasabi leaps and channels chakra to her legs for the legs to enlarge but Kiba dodges. Neko hammer, she shouts, slamming down a double sledge. Kiba's teeth click as he crashes into the ground but recovers, spearing Wasabi to the ground and begins pounding her face. Wasabi manages to kick Kiba off and rolls back to her feet with blood running down her face, her right eye starting to swell up. You've put me in a bad situation by having my vision, Wasabi says and Kiba laughs with a belly laugh. So you'll concede little, Kiba sneers but Wasabi shoots forward, slamming her hands into his chest. Raiden. Hiraishin, Wasabi shouts, electrifying Kiba and the Inuzuka screams in pain. He staggers back and crashes to the ground with a thud, turning back into a human but Wasabi collapses as well. Both fighters are unable to continue, resulting in a double knockout. Genma declares and a few people boo at the double loss but many cheer. Wasabi did her best, Kaguya says. True, she did her best, Anko says. Well at least I didn't lose, Tsunade comments. Medics quickly make their way into the arena and carry out the pair as Genma prepares to announce the match, which is Hinata and Hanoki. Hinata opens her eyes as her father standing before her. Do not lose her, Hiyashi says, glancing to Neji. Hinata slowly rises to her feet with a nod. I will not, father, she says, leaving the waiting room. Hinata makes her way out of the tunnel as Hanoki makes her out the opposite tunnel. Hinata activates her Byakugan with a serious look on her face as Hanoki holds her staff with her left and a half-ram sign with her right. Begin, Genma shouts. Hanoki raises her staff and brings it down with a burst of lightning but Hinata spins on her heel to create a dome of chakra, deflecting the lightning. Hanoki rushes forward as the dome comes down but Hinata meets her a flurry of strikes but Hanoki counters with her staff. You fight similar to your cousin, Hanoki says, back leaping and feeling some of her tenketsu points closed. Hinata narrows her eyes but presses Hanoki, and this time you will fall, Hinata says. Hinata is dictating the pace and keeping Hanoki on the back foot, Shikamaru said. She wants to avenge Neji's loss, Choji says but Shikamaru shakes his head. More to avenge the Hyuga's reputation. She's their heiress and can't lose twice, Shikamaru said. Lightning whip, Hanoki declares, creating a few whips. Shugohawk Rokujian show, Hinata shouts, shooting her hands forward to create a protective barrier. They crash into it as Hinata clenches her fists at her sides with blue chakra surrounding her fists to her elbows. Yuho Soshiken, Hinata says, as the chakra takes the form of guardian lions. Hanoki grips her staff with both hands and fires lightning blasts but Hinata dodges and counters with her gentle steps. Hake Kusho, Hinata shouts, punching forward. The guardian lion shoots forward with a roar and crashes into Hanoki, knocking her back into the ground. Hanoki recovers but Hinata is on her with a flurry of strikes, knocking her staff from her hand and grabbing her by the throat. I surrender, Hanoki shouts. Hinata lets go of Hanoki and the Kumo Kunoichi falls to her knees as Hinata turns on her heels as many cheer for the heiress. Medics come to help Hanoki as Gemma calls the next match of Fuyumi and Sayuri. It's my turn now, Fuyumi thought, checking her gear. The door opens and Kurenai enters. Are you ready? She asks. As I can be, Fuyumi says. Kurenai gives Fuyumi a hug with a soft smile. Just do your best. Put aside the fact that you Yondaime-sama's daughter. Put aside that you are sister of Kawaki and Naruto. You are Fuyumi and you are forging your own path, Kurenai says and Fuyumi sighs, nodding. Thanks mom, Fuyumi says and makes her way out of the waiting room to the arena floor. Konohagakure, Chunin exams final round. The crowd were cheering and murmuring as Fuyumi walks out with Sayuri coming from opposite side, both girls soaking in the adoration from the crowd. Sayuri shrugs off her puppet as her dreamy looks shifts to a serious one. I am looking forward to this match, she says. Fuyumi rolls her neck with a serious look on her face. In what regard? She says, drawing void and shifts into a ox guard stance. Well, I will test myself against someone strong, Sayuri says, bring forth her bull puppet. Genma raises his hand and brings it down to call a begin to the match as the standoff begin as both look for an opening to exploit. I wonder where Naruto is, Mei asks. He's watching from somewhere. He's looking for the daimyo, Konan says. In the cage booth Kushina sits with her legs crossed and her draconic gaze on Fuyumi, keeping her disgust of Hiruzen hidden. She wears her revealing shozoku underneath her cage robes, her blood red hair in a high ponytail. So she fights with swords, A says. Her father fought with a modified kunai, Hiruzen comments. Kuritsuchi was glancing to Kushina and she has to admit the woman was gorgeous. I may be able to pull this off, she thought, crossing her legs and showing them off. Shame the Mizukichi could not come, Kuritsuchi says. HMPH still dealing with the fallout of the civil war, A comments. Back in the arena Sayuri decides to break their little standoff and sends Bull forward as it brandishes a broadsword. Fuyumi meets the puppet as it unleashes a flurry of swings but the blonde blocks each one as sparks fly from each impact. Fuyumi manages to break open Bull's guard and send its sword flying with a small gust of wind but Sayuri moves a finger and the puppet fires a blast of water. Fuyumi quickly brings out her ornate shield and blocks the stream but it pushes her back with its force. Good things I upped my reaction, Fuyumi thought, as the water stops but narrowly dodges Sayuri's second puppet. This puppet has 4 arms and a muscular frame with 2 swords linked by chains. Say hello to Uzui, Sayuri says, as Bull grabs its sword. Fuyumi retracts her shield and grips Void with both hands. She must have deduced my fighting style and prepared accordingly, she thought, as her eyes glow. Fuyumi uses the Shukuchi to shoot forward with her sword creating afterimages, Futon Kenjutsu, flower reflection, she thought, meeting Uzui with a flurry of strike from several directions. The puppet shatters but bursts into a dark yellow cloud, causing Fuyumi's eyes to widen and is engulfed by it. That was a mistake, Sayuri says. Fuyumi appears out of the cloud with a skid but falls to one knee, poison. This isn't good, she thought, feeling body betraying her. Kurenai covers her mouth and maintains herself but Kakashi and Asuma could see the concern in her red eyes. She is the daughter of Akasuna no Sasori, Kakashi comments. Though I wouldn't count out Fuyumi, Asuma adds. Kawaki was watching with a calculating eye from his waiting room with his mother. It seems Minato's useless daughter went in blind and paid for it, Shirahoshi comments, her tone mocking the blonde. Idiot, she's continuing to disgrace our family, Kawaki comments. Shirahoshi strokes her son's head and lifts his chin to look in his eyes. Don't worry. Sensei plans to get rid of her in a dungeon, she says, before kissing her own son on the lips and Kawaki allows access to his tongue. In another part of the arena Anko is watching Fuyumi with a calculating eye. I doubt Sayuri used a deadly poison but regardless. Fuyumi is in a bad spot, she says. Then she doesn't have long before it fully takes effect, Konan says. Fuyumi-chan could lose, Kaguya says, now eating bunny-shaped cookies. It is possible. We don't know what kind of poison Sayuri used but I don't think it would be lethal. Something to inhibit her movements perhaps, Tsunade says, cupping her chin in thought. Fuyumi grips Void but she could her fingers starting to go numb. I need to end this soon, she thought. Bull rushes Fuyumi with its sword raised but she lowers her stance, using Severing Void to shatter Bull into pieces. Fuyumi quickly uses Shukuchi to close the gap between her and Sayuri with her sword aimed to incapacitate her opponent. I was saving this for the later rounds, Sayuri says and quickly weaves signs to ram. A loud clang erupts and Fuyumi gasps as her sword connects with a shield of black sand but it slowly encompasses Void, wrenching it from her hands and Sayuri connects with a palm strike with the black sand. Fuyumi spews some spittle from her mouth as she crashes to the ground, while Sayuri tosses Void away and the black sand covers her arms and chest. This is my iron sand, Sayuri says. Fuyumi staggers to her feet with her eyes to blur but she draws Sakura Dancer. I'm running out of time, she thought, sending forth her petals. Sayuri counters with iron feathers as both collide into one another, her will is strong. Most would have given up by now due to the poison, but she won't last much longer. Her limbs must feel like tree trunks, Sayuri thought. Fuyumi holds up a half-ram sign and Sayuri gasps as Fuyumi starts to fade away. Genjutsu, Sayuri thought and moves to break it, but the petals from Sakura slam into her, knocking her back with a skid. Fuyumi uses the distraction to regain void and she holds both swords in her hands as Sakura reforms. Futon Ken, Jutsu. Ta, Su, Ma. Fuyumi starts but crashes to the ground, to the shock of the crowd. Genma rushes to Fuyumi and checks her. Fuyumi Namikaze is unable to continue. Winner Sayuri Akasora, he declares. Wow, Fuyumi actually lost, Ino says. Serves her right, Sakura comments. Many in the crowd were disappointed the daughter of their famous Yondaime was defeated, while many others were cheering for the girl doing her best. Medic quickly come to get Fuyumi as Sayuri gives them the counter-agent for her poison. I wonder what that final attack could have been, Sayuri thought, leaving the field. We will now have a 30-minute intermission, Genma declares. In the cage booth Hiruzen frowns at Fuyumi's defeat but puts on a mask to look at Rasa. Congratulations to your genin, he says. Sayuri did well. The same with the young Namikaze, Rasa says. Tell me, is she related to the Sandaime Kazekage? That without a doubt was his famous iron sand, Kushina asks. Similar. Sayuri is capable of the Jitenkeke Genkai and thanks to her father. She became fascinated with the iron sand, Rasa explains. That was a good match. Both showed skills that could see them promoted, Kuritsuchi states. If Namikaze could have lasted a little longer, we may have seen something interesting, A states. Kushina slowly nods but shifts her gaze to Hiruzen. I bet you're upset. You monkey bastard, she thought. Fuyumi stares up at the ceiling as the poison that Sayuri used was being filtered out of her body, before slowly tears well up in her eyes. The medic sees this and feels pity for the girl but say nothing to comfort her. The door opens and Kurenai enters with a concerned look on her face. How is she says, seeing her daughter on the verge of crying. It was paralytic poison but we were given the counter-agent. It will be about an hour before she can fully move, the medic says and heads to check on the other genin. Kurenai takes a seat next to Fuyumi and caresses her forehead. It's okay. You did the best you could have, Kurenai says. But my best won't be good enough for them, Fuyumi whispers, her voice breaking a bit. Don't worry about them, even if everyone turns against you. You have me, Kurenai says. A knock at the door catches their attention and Kurenai gets up to open the door to see Sayuri with Gaara and Temari. Sayuri wanted to check at you, Temari says. She wears a purple long-sleeve blouse with a high collar underneath a gray top, and a dark blue skirt with a split in the middle revealing her purple leggings, fingerless gloves and sandals. Kurenai opens the door more and lets the three young women inside. Are you alright, Fuyumi-san? Sayuri says. Why, yeah, I just need to let the antidote do its job, Fuyumi says. Are you Naruto's little sister? Gaara asks and Fuyumi says yes. Gaara wears a crimson long-sleeve blouse with a folded collar and a black top, black shorts with a front-open crimson apron skirt, mesh stockings and sandals with a large gourd on her back. He's a good guy, helped us with a gate a few months back, and his guild is helping train our hunters. He even inspired our brother to make puppets, Temari comments, shocking Fuyumi and Kurenai. Naruto is a good person, Kurenai comments. Fuyumi-san, what were you going to use before you passed out? Sayuri asks. Fuyumi looks at the ceiling with a soft sigh. It was called Tatsumaki Flower Crash. Basically a tornado with the sakura petals, she explains. It sucks we didn't get to see it, Temari says. Do not let this loss discourage you. See it as opportunity to learn and grow stronger from it, Gaara says. Has your brother come to see you? Temari asks but Fuyumi shakes her head. He must meeting with the other daimyo, Kurenai says. He is but I think he would rather be here, Anko says, standing in the doorway with a small container in her hands. Anko dono, Kurenai says but Anko waves her hand, as the Sand Sisters and Sayuri excuse themselves. Just call me Anko. The harem sent me to check on you and Kaguya wanted you to have these, Anko says, giving Kurenai the container of bunny cookies and Fuyumi nods with a soft smile. Also he would say that one loss doesn't make your life. Learn from it and grow stronger, Anko says, smiling. It is a shame Lord Minace has passed but that shouldn't be seen as a slight against you. Lord Kenshin, Heen said. He is man in his late 40s or early 50s, with a frail build and black hair in a topknot. Coal-color eyes and wispy beard that is graying and wearing black, red and white robes. HMPH. He betrayed his lord. Mio's the Lord of Wind sneers. He is an overweight man with a balding head, gray eyes and wearing similar clothes to Heen. He allowed his people to die. I could no longer let this happen, Kenshin said. Lord Tsuchi remains quiet but could agree with Kenshin. Times are changing, he says. He is a dark-skinned man in his late 30s with dark eyes and whitish blonde hair. He wears a golden black robe with a black headband. Indeed they are. Uzushio is making a serious case to be spoken in the same breath as our countries, the lone female daimyo Makura says. She is in her late 40s with black hair in an elegant bun and green eyes, wearing green and gold robes. That upstart, Mio says, drinking some wine. He is not someone to take in lightly, Tsuchi comments. He has made powerful allies. Hanzo the Salamander to name one, Makura says. Even Tsunade has aligned with Uzushio. Even your own country Lord Kenshin, Tsuchi adds. Mio shoots Kenshin a disgusted look as Hien remains blank but the doors shoot open, causing their guards to appear. Well now, this is where the big deals are made among the 5 great lords, Naruto says. He wears black pinstripe, 3-piece suit without a coat, white dress shirt with a white tie and black gloves. Uzumaki. Mio sneers. Naruto removes his sunglasses with an amused smile. When Lord Kenshin told me about this meeting, I just knew I had to attend and set things straight, he says, letting them hang from his vest. Set things straight, Hien says. Naruto takes a seat across from Hien and slips a menthol into his mouth. Oh yes, he says, locking eyes with Hien. My mother still remembers how you and your advisors treated her after my father's unfortunate passing. You allowed them to speak to her any kind of way despite her being a daimyo, Naruto says and Hien looks away slightly. However, I am not my mother, Naruto says and pauses. I'm worse, he adds, a glint in his eyes. I stand by it. She allowed our Yondaime to die, Hien said and Naruto scoffs, leaning back in his chair. She didn't allow anything, he chose to enter the tower alone. I guess the fact he was an SS-class hunter went to his head. Along with yours, Naruto says and Hien shoots him a dark look. Calm yourself Lord Hien, Lord Naruto, Kenshin said. I'm calm, so let's put the foolishness of the Yondaime aside. Lord Tsuchi, I managed to meet Samui and to be honest I'm offended that you would bribe me into helping your Thunder Guild, Naruto says. You refuse to entertain cooperation between the Thunder and Espada guilds, Tsuchi says. I'm offended as well. Women are not pawns to be used, Makura comments. She is correct but just as guilty. You want the same cooperation as Lord Tsuchi, Naruto says. We have many gates to offer. Unlike lightning, Makura says. Only because you do not clear them and charge extravagant prices for the rights, Tsuchi argues. Wind and fire are guilty of that as well. It explains why Suna were so desperate, Naruto comments, blowing a stream of smoke. They should be grateful they continue to function in my country, Mio snaps. Yes, it is your country and without Suna it would be overrun by dungeon breaks, Naruto counters. Several veins bulge on Mio's face with a heated glare. You arrogant upstart. He says but Naruto unleashes his aura. The 5 daimyo see the dark aura wafting off of Naruto but it was directed more to Mio's, causing the fatter man to sweat in fear. Show some decorum Lord Mio's, Naruto says, his eyes glowing. I agree. Let's move to main topic but I feel a break would be better. The intermission is almost over, Hien says and his counterparts nod. Hien and Mio's are the first to leave, followed by Makura and Kenshin. I will entertain your bribery but I'm curious on the real reason, Naruto says. Tsuchi takes a sip of water with a sigh. I want to organize a 4th expedition to Glacier Island, he says. Naruto crosses his legs and rests his head on his palm. Glacier Island. Infamous site of an S-class break, he says. Indeed, and in recent years has become a hotbed of activity. Yuki has reported strange beasts on the island, Tsuchi says. Any possibility of them leaving the island, Naruto asks. It could be possible, hence the desire to put together the expedition, Tsuchi states. Naruto takes a drag and some smoke slip out but sucks it up his nose. Nothing less than S-class teams should go to that island, he says. I agree. Glacier Island has been a stain on the 5 great nations for years. I want to stop whatever is on that island from escaping and wreaking havoc, Tsuchi states and Naruto leans back in his chair. I'll speak to my mother, Naruto says and rises from his chair. If you can convince the Summer Queen, the preliminary team will meet in Hot Spring Country in 2 months' time. I'll send the information through the proper channels, Tsuchi says, as Naruto walks past him and out the room. He must be in talks with others to even consider putting together a team, Zetsue says and Naruto smirks. That makes it more interesting. Clearing Glacier would bring prestige to the guild who clears it and by extension their country, Naruto thought, making his way to the cage booth. Chunin Arena. Iwabi vs Kawaki. Iwabi slaps his cheeks several times as he makes his way to the arena floor as Kawaki does the same but with a blank look on his face. He is wearing the standard Konoha attire with a black coat, having the left sleeve missing and white fur around the collar. In the cage booth Hiruzen was anticipating this match, with Fuyumi's failure to win in her match. It falls to Kawaki to impress the masses and people will flock to Konoha, it's almost fitting that it against Uzu, Hiruzen thought. A battle of ancient allies, Rasa comments and A scoffs. Frosty allies. A corrects and Kushina crosses her legs but sees her son approaching. Naruto looks over 4 of the 5 cages. Zabuza decided to sit things out to focus on Kurigakure. We need to talk, Naruto says, leaning down to kiss Kushina on her temple. What about? Kushina says, as Naruto takes a seat on the edge of her chair. The lightning daimyo wants Glacier Island, Naruto says, in a language the cage did not understand. A appraises Naruto with the side eye, not even 18 and is more powerful than his father. I should challenge him to fight, he thought, as Kushina and Naruto were speaking. Kami, that is her son, she has had a child and still looks that beautiful, Kuritsuchi thought, thinking of a way to align with Uzushio before Kumo could. Hiruzen glances to Naruto and Kushina, his thoughts on the many failures to bring Naruto into their sphere. I may need to move up the timetable of using Fuyumi. However, I need the perfect gate. Preferably a red gate, Hiruzen thought. Back in the arena, Kawaki and Iwabi stare each other down as the tension between them was rising, so much Genma could pick up on it. Let the match begin, Genma shouts and back leaps. Iwabi twirls his bow staff around his body, it's like he doesn't care. Like I'm beneath him, he thought, seeing Kawaki's disinterested look. Iwabi shoots forward but digs his staff into the ground to vault him up and he twists to bring the staff down but Kawaki dodges. Doden. Doryuha, Iwabi shouts, after letting go of his staff and flash signs to Tiger. Kawaki tsks as he dodges the flowing river of dirt but Iwabi rides it to close the gap into a flurry of strikes, which Kawaki dodges cleanly as the pair enter into test of strength. Iwabi yanks back and pulls Kawaki forward into a headbutt to stagger him. Doden. Doryuso, Iwabi shouts, flashing signs to Bird and slamming his hands. The spears erupt from the ground but Kawaki dodges and flashes signs to Snake. Doden. Dosekiryu, he utters. Many in the crowd gasp as a stone dragon erupts from the ground and Iwabi puts up a earth wall but the dragon crashes through, knocking him back with 2 hops. Maiden. Jajimento, Kawaki utters, firing a tight blast of blue flames. Iwabi manages to Kawarini with a log and crashes into the ground. What the hell was that? He thought. Kawaki flashes signs to Snake and slams his right hand into the ground. Mokuden. Mokusatsu Shibari no Jutsu, he utters. The crowd gasp in shock, awe and reverence as wood cracks out the ground and binds Iwabi. Mokuden. The Kekkei Genkei of Shadaime-sama. It has been reborn, several whisper. Hiruzen smile triumphantly as the crowd were basking the power of Kawaki but also Konoha as the Mokuden has been reborn in their village. Not only is he the son of the Yondaime Hokage but related to the Senju, Kuritsuchi says, her pink eyes flickering. Konoha has been keeping secrets, A comments but Hiruzen remains silent. Iwabi struggles to free himself but the wood is restricting his movements as he sees Kawaki approaching but also with a callous smile on his face. Damn it, Naruto said he would kill me, Iwabi thought and looks to Genma, I surrender. He shouts. Kawaki ignores Genma's call of the match and shoots forward with his left hand raised, causing Iwabi to look in horror but suddenly Naruto appears and grabs Kawaki's hand. Didn't you hear? The match is over, Naruto says. Kawaki wrenches his hand free and back leaps as Naruto full turns to him, before the Monarch's quicksword comes to life and free Iwabi. HMPH, he got lucky, Kawaki says and turns on his heels, to the cheers of the Konoha residents. So he possesses the Maiden too. So perhaps Konoha possesses the Chimera technique, Naruto thought and turns to Iwabi. You did good, Naruto says, walking with Iwabi towards the tunnel. I lost though, Iwabi says and Naruto pats his back. So what? One loss doesn't make your life. Learn from it and grow stronger, Naruto says. In the crowd Ino and Sakura were cheering loudly for Kawaki but also booing Iwabi. Kawaki is capable of the Mokuden of Shadaime-sama, Choji says. It would seem so and showed it off to all 5 great nations, Shikamaru says. I knew Kawaki-kun was amazing, Ino says, her cheeks blushing. Not better than Sasuke-kun, Sakura shouts, thinking of being fucked by both like a common whore. Shikamaru and Choji sigh as both girls start screeching and arguing about Sasuke and Kawaki as the former's match was still to come. So the little bastard can use the Mokuden, Tsunade says. Of course our Kawaki can. He is a true Senju, Shirahoshi says, standing on the steps. Tsunade rises from her seat with a glare on her face, so Shirahoshi Senju. One of 3 beasts, she says but smirks, seeing you now. I'm not impressed, she adds and several tick marks form on Shirahoshi's face. Konan and Kaguya rise from their seats with Mei as the 2 Senju glare at one another. Can we not right now, Konan says. Naruto-kun promised to buy us sweets, Kaguya says. The four lovers of Naruto walk past Shirahoshi as the blonde sneers at her. That little bitch, Shirahoshi thought. Your Mokuden is different from his. His is like your great-grandfather, Queresha comments. I wonder how they did it, Tsunade thought. It seems they did everything to keep him under wraps. Probably trained outside this village too, Konan comments, as they enter the hallway to find Naruto. He can't be Fuyumi's age, Mei says. He isn't, Naruto says, walking up, but all of them see his missing sleeves and gloves. What happened? Tsunade asks, and Naruto runs his fingers through his hair. Well, Naruto starts. Several moments earlier. Music. Fairy Tale, Absolute Zero Silver Ost, Extended. Naruto leaves Iwabi with the medics and makes his way to find Fuyumi and check on her after her match, but sighs, making his way outside the arena and erects his barrier to not be disturbed. Naruto looks around and sees an open field and sighs. You know it's rude to follow someone like that. Don't you know who I am? He says. I know who you are and I am not impressed, a voice says, and Naruto looks back to see Delta with a cloak covering her form. Naruto slowly turns to face Delta with a smirk on his face. So you know me, he says. I know all about Naruto Uzumaki. Shadow Monarch, Delta says. Naruto's smirk widens and he flexes his aura to spiderweb the ground underneath him as his eyes glow purple. A bloodthirsty smile forms on Delta's face as her eyes glow and energy bursts forth, forcing Naruto to throw up his hands to block. The beam burns away his gloves and the sleeves of his dress shirt as he skids across the ground. Delta cuts the beam and rockets towards Naruto, but somersaults to dodge Naruto's twisting strike. She lands and leaps into a downward axe kick, but Naruto blocks and grabs her leg, swinging and slamming her hard on the ground with a thud. Kitty's got some claws, Naruto says, swinging down with his right, but Delta dodges as the fist crashes and shatters the ground. More than claws, Delta says, slamming her now transformed right leg into Naruto's head, but the Monarch's head barely moves. Delta's eyes widen, but Naruto grabs her leg once again but spins to toss her like a frisbee, causing her to crash into the ground with 3 hops. Delta gets to her feet with a look of rage on her face. Screw what the others think. I'm going to brutally murder this bastard, she thought. She rockets forward with a right straight, but Naruto catches her fist and she catches his counter. You know, Naruto says, pushing Delta back and pushing her back towards the ground. Delta fires a beam from her eyes, but Naruto dodges with a skid and a smirk. Fighting a monarch is never a good idea, he says, flexing more of his aura but his Ryutsu. Delta seizes at the force of Naruto's power, but he vanishes to appear above her. Hado 63 Reikoho, he shouts, bracing his left hand with his right. Delta's breath hitches as she is engulfed by a large electric yellow blast, digging a 3-foot crater as Naruto lands with to look at the dust cloud. It slowly dissipates and Naruto moves closer and Delta lays motionless, but he leans to see her face cracked like glass. Seriously, a doll? Naruto says, before erasing her with a Sero. The monarch sighs and sucks himself into his left eye, vanishing along with anything showing a battle between him and Delta. Song ends. So who was she? Konan asks, but Naruto shrugs and Tsunade slaps him in the back of his head, as Mei's sweat drops and Kaguya remains quiet. She used a faux body. High-end stuff too, Naruto says. She knows you are Monarch. Could it be another? Konan says, as they make their way to Tayuya's waiting room. Then our fellow monarchs have gotten soft, Naruto says. They reach Tayuya's waiting room and find her with her headphones on. What happened to you? Tayuya says. Naruto unbuttons his vest as Konan pulls out some clothes from a scroll. Ran into someone, he says, continuing to undress. Pervert, Tayuya hisses, looking away, and Naruto flexes. He slips on some blue jeans with tennis shoes with a checkered button-up shirt and a sweater over it. So are you ready for your match? Naruto asks. Pretty much. I won't know how he'll react. So I'll play it by ear, Tayuya says and moves before Naruto ruffle her hair. I'm going see Fuyumi, Naruto says and Tayuya nods. We'll hang with Yuya, Tsunade says and Naruto nods, waving his hand. He makes his way to find his sister and finds her with Anko. Hey Naru-kun, Anko says. Hey, so how you feeling? Naruto says, after kissing Anko on the cheek and turning his gaze to Fuyumi. Better. The counter-agent has purged all the poison, Fuyumi says, and Naruto ruffles her blonde hair, then looks into her blue eyes. You don't have to hold back, Naruto says, as Fuyumi suddenly sniffles and buries her face into him. Now it will get worse. People will think even less of me, Fuyumi whispers, softly crying. I told you, even if everyone turns against you, you'll have me, Kurenai says, holding some food for her. You'll have Naru-kun and I too, Anko says. Fuyumi pulls from Naruto and wipes a few tears away with a small nod. I know, but putting up with Sasuke or Hinata, she says. This may come off as harsh, but Hinata. Sasuke or even Kawaki have clans to rely on. You've gotten as strong as you are through hard work and Kurenai's guidance, Naruto says. Naru-kun is right, you're strong Fuyumi, never let anyone tell you different, Anko says and Fuyumi slowly nods, beginning to eat her food. Chunin Arena. Yodo vs Sasuke. Sasuke stands with a haughty look on his face as he stares at Yodo with the blonde keeping her gaze away from his Sharingan eyes. Genma looks between as he raises his arm to call a begin to the match and Sasuke starts and weaves signs to Tiger, Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, he shouts, before spewing a large fireball. Yodo counters by whipping her long hair to create a sonic boom to throw of the trajectory of Sasuke's flames but also him. Sasuke thought, feeling a bit disoriented. Yodo closes the gap with a flurry of strikes as Sasuke blocks but a few get through, staggering the arrogant Uchiha. Sasuke draws his Jien and swings wide but Yodo dodges with several backflips. Kaden, Kan Enbu, he shouts, creating a wave of flames. Yodo whips her hair again to block Sasuke's flames but this time he is prepared, using the hiding like a mole jutsu to move through the ground. Yodo dodges Sasuke from below and increases the gap between them with an inhale to unleash a sonic cry like a canary. Again Sasuke is forced to retreat underground but thanks to her superior hearing, she dodges his swipes from below and lands with skid. Arg! Yodo cries, as a spear of lightning pierces her leg from behind. This sword is special as it can create a doppelganger, Sasuke says, emerging from the ground. Yodo clutches her leg but keeps her eyes out of Sasuke's line of sight, that doesn't matter. You were already caught, he says and forces her to look up at him. Yodo was about to unleash another cry but Sasuke knocks her out with a genjutsu. Winner Sasuke Uchiha, Genma shouts and the crowd cheers loudly. Sasuke soaks in the adoration like a greedy pig as he makes his way out of the arena. Medic quickly come for Yodo as Sayuri watches on, he is very dangerous. Including him, Konoha has 3 dangerous genin, she thought. Told you Sasuke-kun would win, Ino shouts and teammates sigh in unison, also hearing Sakura screaming the same. Mendoku say, we didn't doubt him, Shikamaru says. Sasuke is our leader, Shino says, shocking all of them as they didn't know she was there. Genma calls for the final participants of the first round as Lee and Tayuya make their way to the arena. Think Lee can take her, Choji says. Shikamaru cups his chin in thought as he shifts his gaze from each of them, she fights long range. Lee is close range, if Lee can't get in close she'll win, he says. Lee's pretty fast, he may be able to close any gap she creates, Choji says and Shikamaru slowly nods. Both fighters ready. Let the final match of round 1 begin, Genma shouts. Tayuya creates her bow as Lee shifts into Goken stance, let us have a good match, he says. Her response was to fire a few arrows but Lee dodges each as Tayuya shunshins back to fire more. Lee moves his hands and leaves wisps of energy as he parry the arrows of chakra or destroy them completely. Show her my son, show her the power of youth. Guy shouts and many hold their ears. Calm down Guy, Asuma says. Uzumaki is adept at long range but if Lee gets close, Kakashi comments. Then she may lose, Asuma adds. Tayuya wanted to curse at the speed of Lee as he tries to close the gap, this must be the power of the gates, she thought. Konoha senpu, Lee shouts, narrowly missing with a kick. Tayuya appears with a skid and a glare but many gasp as blood runs from her forehead, he must have a futon affinity. Even he missed the force got me, she thought, wiping some blood on her hand. Tayuya flashes several signs and slams her hand on the ground with 3 huge puffs of smoke as Lee halts in his tracks, slowly the smoke dissipates and Lee sees 3 towering figures. The first wears dark green full body suit and its gray hair covers its entire head and face. It wields a giant studded metal club. The second has a feminine figure with its upper body completely covered in bandages, brown pants and has 2 scimitars. The third is shirtless and wears dark pants, bald and has scars on its head and wears a blindfold. It has a claw-like weapon seemingly tied to each arm. What are those? Ace says. They are Doki or Oni you can say, Kushina says. Are they summons? Hiruzen asks but Kushina ignores him. Damn witch, he thought. So are they, Kuritsuchi asks. Of sorts, Kushina says, her draconic eye roaming over the supernova. The Uzumaki are full of secrets, A thought. Tayuya reaches into her pouch and pulls out a silver flute and brings it to her lips, before starting a haunting melody. Lee gasps as this melody sends the 3 Doki into action as Club raises his club with heavy steps. I need to be careful, Lee thought, before dodging Club's swing. Scimitar charges with a flurry of swings but Lee dodges each as Claw enters the fray but suddenly the melody changes as all 3 Doki tear open their mouth. Lee's eyes widen as wispy worm-like entities emerge from their mouths and he narrows dodges. What in the world, he thought, landing but braces as Club connects with a swing. One of the worm pierces him and Lee feels his body becoming weaker. They steal physical energy, Lee thought. Scimitar rushes forward with a double downward strike but Lee dodges but again club scores a blow, tossing Lee with several hops. Uzumaki has taken the advantage with those creatures, Choji says, seeing Lee struggling to get up. There must be something else, Shikamaru says. Claw rushes towards Lee as he rises with his body glowing slightly. Ninpu, Tabo Taiha, Lee shouts, slamming a palm strike to Claw and blow out his chest like a cannon blast. However, this is short-lived as Claw explodes in an almost piercing sound, destroying Lee's eardrums and causing Genma to cover his ears. Hyuga uses this to have Club and Scimitar spew more ghost worms to knock out Lee. Genma approaches Lee and confirms Hyuga's victory. That is the end of the first round. We will not take 1 hour intermission, he declares. In the cage booth, Hiruzen excuses himself as Kushina glances to Rasa but then to Kuretsuchi, Lady Tsuchikage. How about we talk a little bit, she says, and Kuretsuchi agrees. Why is Rasa here? You assured me he would dealt with, Hiruzen says, nearly glaring at his prized student Orochimaru. The snake charmer remains blank-faced with a sigh. Rasa had an escort from Uzushio. Nagato Uzumaki and Yahiko Senju. Himemaru-kun felt it was not advantageous to attempt the assassination, he explains. Hiruzen wanted to punch a hole in a wall but remains calm, no matter. Sooner or later the Wind Lord will crush them, he says. I watched Kawaki-kun's match. He did well and revealed his Mokuden, Orochimaru says. Hiruzen lights his pipe with a little Kaden chakra and nods with a hit on his pipe, indeed. Now the other nations know the Kawaki has the power to subdue their Jinchuriki, he says. Perhaps Kawaki can learn Minato's Hiraishin next, Orochimaru says. That is possible but it will take time, Hiruzen says. The door to Hiruzen's office opens as Danzo enters with a young woman with mint green hair, tanned skin and wearing Anbu gear with a blank mask clipped to her hip. Our new recruit, Fu and Nanabe Jinchuriki, Danzo says, and Fu bows. I will serve. I will be of service, Fu says, her tone monotone. I accept your service. You will be assigned to Team RO, Hiruzen says, and Fu bows once again. Fuyumi failed in her match, Orochimaru says, and Danzo grips her cane, causing the snake user to smirk. She lost to someone from a weak nation, Danzo says, and Orochimaru chuckles. She is the daughter of Akasuna no Sasori, but it does look bad for someone like her to lose, Orochimaru says. Regardless, once a red gate reveals itself, Team 8 will be sent under the guise of a lower-ranked gate, Hiruzen says. At the same time Naruto is discussing the same incident with his Espada, so he sent his Sound 5. Naruto says, squatting on the roof of the Chunin arena with Zetsue in her cane form, resting on his right shoulder as Yahiko nods. I sensed them trailing us all the way to the border. It was definitely Kimimaro Kaguya, Nagato says, and Naruto taps his own shoulder with his cane. I hear he's on the cusp of being S-class. Danzo and the Hokage must want to get on Mio's good side by getting rid of Rasa, but it'll the opposite as Mio's will soon meet his end, Naruto says. For real, Yahiko says. Naruto rises to his full height and rests his hands on his cane. Bellion told me there are forces in Mio's own court who want him deposed for his hedonistic actions and his blind placating to Hien, he explains. So a coup will take place. Do we know who? Nagato asks. Naruto scratches his head with a shake of his head. Bellion is keeping an eye and will inform me, he says. That brother of yours is interesting, Yahiko says, changing the subject. Indeed he is. Genetics at its best. He's 4 years younger than me and 3 years for Fuyumi but looks our age. Even has Tsunade's great-grandfather's Mokuden, Naruto says, slipping a menthol into his light and lighting it with a Zippo. Tsunade must be pissed, Nagato says, and Naruto nods with a drag. I am too. Great-grandfather must be weeping that his clan has fractured so much, Yahiko says. Blame the greed of Itama Senju. His jealousy of his brothers lead to this, Kushina says, appearing behind her son. Konoha attempted to kill the cage, Naruto says, and Kushina narrows her eyes in anger. Their unfettered arrogance, Kushina hisses and pinches her nose with a sigh. Have you been told the Lightning Daimyo wants to send a 4th expedition to Glacier Island, she adds, but both shake their heads. I was getting to that. He wants the prestige of being the one to finally conquer the famed S-class break. He will send information through proper channels but wants to meet in Hot Spring in 2 months to pregame, Naruto explains. Glacier Island, huh? I wonder will Konoha back out again, Yahiko says. They won't. It's too big of a target to pass up. Though they don't have many S-class hunters left, Nagato adds. If your father were alive, he would be someone to go. Perhaps Hien will let his tiger roam to Glacier, Kushina says. Naruto drops his cigarette and puts it out with his boot. Looks like the second round is about to begin, he says. Hyuga doesn't need to go further. No need to show them everything, Kushina says and vanishes. Weren't her doki everything, Yahiko says, but both Uzumaki chuckle. Nah, Yuya has more than meets the eye, Naruto says, as the three vanish. Chunin Arena, Ajisai vs Hinata. Ajisai schools a neutral face as she stares at the Hyuga heiress and Hinata schools an arrogant face. The crowd were clearly on Hinata's side with a few scattered cheers for Ajisai as the kunoichi from a small country has made this far. Ajisai looks to the crowd in search of her angel and sees a sign made of paper in one of Daimyo's box, giving her a little confidence. Ajisai has done well, but I feel that won't be enough, Konan says, now sitting in her lover's private box. The Hyuga rely on their taijutsu. Ajisai stays at long range. She can possibly win, Tsunade says, pouring some sake. Ah, she has your Kamaten, Kaguya says, with a popsicle. True, but does she have the stamina? Anko comments, with a large pan of dango next to her. Nagato and Yahiko enter the private box as the lovers of their boss look to them. Naruto said that he's gonna bring Fuyumi and Kurenai, Yahiko says. That's cool, she can sit with people who will actually appreciate her, Anko says. Naruto soon arrives with Fuyumi and Kurenai as Genma starts to the match. Your arrogant teammate will pull off the victory, he says. Are you doubting my teaching? Konan says, sticking her tongue out. No, but Ajisai isn't you. She's been learning the Kamaten a few months compared to you. I'm only stating a cold fact, Naruto says. Hinata dashes forward with her Byakugan active as Ajisai pulls a seal paper from her pouch. Kaifujutsu, Kamifubuki, she declares, bring a storm of paper, but Hinata halts and spins with Kaden. Ajisai uses her Kamaten and lets some paper release from her body as Hinata comes to a halt, before sending several paper shuriken. Shugohak Rokujian Sho, Hinata declares, cutting all of Ajisai's shuriken. She's dangerous. It's worse I haven't fully recovered my chakra, Ajisai thought and weaves signs to ram, but her breath hitches. Too slow, weakling. Hake Rokujian Sho, Hinata says, unleashing her 64 palms. Ajisai's body ragdolls and she crashes back as her body was numb, before attempting to get to her feet but collapses. Ajisai is unable to continue. Winner Hinata Hyuga, Genma declares. Hinata turns on her heels with a scoff as the many people cheer. I've guaranteed my promotion, she thought. She need to work on her speed, Naruto says. I would agree, but looking at the brackets, Konoha is possibly guaranteed those three will be the finals, Konan says. Of course, Konoha made the brackets. Tayuya will forfeit and Sayuri will face Sasuke, or they may pull the swerve and have Sasuke face Kawaki, Naruto says, and Fuyumi frowns, as Genma calls the next match of Sasuke and Kawaki. Guess the Hokage doesn't want to seem like he's loading the finals, Naruto says. So we get to see a Senju versus Uchiha, A comments. Kushina glances to Hiruzen but mentally sighs, even if either forfeit. They'll be promoted, she thought, watching the pair making their way into the arena. The match was relatively short, but it was enough to show the power of Konoha, them tossing around jutsu with Kawaki showing off his Mokudan and Sasuke his control of flames. The Konoha residents were reveling in the show their power, especially Kawaki's Mokudan, with Kawaki deciding to bow out of the match. Quite impressive, Sandame, Rasa says. Yes indeed, Kawaki will continue to grow. Perhaps we will see the rebirth of the Kiroi Senko, Hiruzen says, and Kushina snorts. That would be quite the feat. Perhaps my son should do it as the aka Senko, Kushina says, a smirk gracing her lips, and Hiruzen glares at the red head. Ha ha ha, I wouldn't mind seeing it. Uzumaki is powerful and having the Hiraishin at his disposal, Ace says, letting the words hang. Kuretsuchi wasn't thinking about the arguing between the other cage but on her meeting and speaking with Kushina. Thank Kami I changed my panties, Kuretsuchi thought, hearing Genma declaring that Tayuya has forfeited her match against Sayuri. So will we be having a three-way match, or one of them be chosen to pass to the finals, Rasa says. A glorified 2 versus 1, Ace says. Hiruzen sends word to Genma to bring out all three finalists as he rises to his feet, to looks down as the three genin make their way onto the field as people cheer them on. Ladies and gentlemen, below are 3 shining beacons of the future. However, seeing we have an odd number of finalists, on one hand we could have one move on to the finals with a pass. Or a 3-way battle royal, but that would leave young Akasora against 2 opponents. So by virtue of that, the 5 cage have decided to declare a 3-way tie, Hiruzen says, causing Kushina to snort. Anything to look virtuous, Kushina thought. The other cage remain cage quiet but rise to their feet and clap for the 3 as Hiruzen starts clapping. Anything to look good, Naruto says, but Fuyumi and Kurenai doesn't catch it, as the crowd cheers and shower praise on the genin finalists. Team 00 stand before their sensei, his mother and their cage, the members of Neo NUGC but also Wasabi's parents. The 3 were standing at attention as Naruto crosses his legs. You 3 did well. Despite what happened, he starts and Wasabi frowns, at the double knockout with Kiba. I agree, Wasabi, you did well against the Inuzuka despite the double knockout. Continue to work on control and increase your stamina, Kushina says. Such praise from Uzukage-sama. Maybe you can become Uzukage someday, Wasabi's mother Mizuma says, hugging her daughter. She has fair skin and blonde, shoulder-length wavy hair that mostly flows free, with the top of it done up in a bun and cat ears. She wears a simple brown band around her forehead and a beaded necklace with black glasses. She also wears a long, gray open robe with blue edges, a dark gray shirt, blue pants with a brown belt, and brown boots. Mom, Wasabi whines. Wasabi father named Daruma laughs loudly as her grandmother Amagi smiles warmly. That would be amazing, he says. He has a tan complexion with black hair but a shaved, with a trimmed goatee, and golden eyes with cat-like pupils. He wears a sleeveless black shirt with a green vest that has high colors and pockets, gray shorts, and red wristbands. The first of our family to be a Kage, Amagi says. She has heavy wrinkles with white hair that is done up in a bun. She wears green robes with a gray shirt over it. Kushina stifles her laughter as the members of the Neo-Nugu do the same, while Naruto simply sighs. Iwabi, you were against the wall by facing the Senju. Though there are not many who can stand against the Mokuden. Continue to increase your control and expand your arsenal, Kushina says, and Iwabi snaps to attention. I will Uzukage-sama, Iwabi says. To Yuya, not much needs to be said, Kushina says, and to Yuya bobs her head. Which is why, you three have earned a membership to Espada, Naruto says, as Wasabi and Iwabi light up. You should know that entails playing with me, Anko says, and Iwabi pales, causing her to giggle and Naruto sigh. He rises to his feet with a shake of his head. You won't be alone with her. Now we'll be leaving the village in about 2 hours. Make sure you got everything, Naruto says, and the three nod. Where are you going, Sochi? Kushina asks. Gonna see Fuyumi before we leave, Naruto says. Ah, will you get me? I mean some muffins, Kaguya says, and Naruto nods, as the others shake their head at the elf's love of sweets. Naruto leaves the room and makes his way downstairs, then out of the hotel as the village was abuzz with adoration and arrogance about Kawaki. You would think he's the second coming, Zetsue says, and Naruto snorts. Of course he is, and Konoha will continue to scream it until everyone accepts it, Naruto thought. Naruto finds Fuyumi at the academy on a familiar swing. You're hard to find, he says, and Fuyumi looks back. Kidding, he adds. Hey, Fuyumi says, and Naruto sighs, giving her a little push. Don't let them get down. Konoha will continue to push Kawaki until it is gospel that he is their beacon, Naruto says, and Fuyumi sighs. That doesn't make me feel better. Kawaki's younger than me and made it further than me. People will continue to bring it up, Fuyumi says. Do you want to leave? Espada could use you, Naruto says, and Fuyumi looks back with flickering eyes. I couldn't leave. This is my home and mom is here, Fuyumi says. Naruto stops pushing Fuyumi and comes around to look into her blue eyes. She can come with. Though it wouldn't be easy. The Hokage will whine and complain, he says, and Fuyumi stifles her laugh. Fuyumi rises to her feet to hug Naruto and he wraps his arms around her. I'll see you for my birthday or a gate, he says. Yeah, any particular present? Fuyumi asks, after she pulls back. Naruto cups his chin in thought with a tilt of his head. I'm particular to weapons, he says. I'll try to find something. Maybe Sennosuke has something, Fuyumi says, and Naruto nods his head. All right, I'll see you later, Naruto says, and give another hug, before vanishing to head back home to Uzushio and Fuyumi to head home. Hokage Tower. Next day, Fuyumi stands with the other members of the Rookie Nine and their sensei, wearing casual clothes of jeans, trainers and a blue blouse. Hiruzen is sitting at a long table with Shikaku, Danzo and the three beasts behind him, with Jiraiya staring at Fuyumi and a disappointed look on his face. Yesterday was the culmination of our Chunin exams. You all showed your skills to myself and the other nations. Some of you showed amazing skills and others not so much, Hiruzen starts and Fuyumi frowns. Among the 9 of you, 4 will be promoted to Chunin. Shikamaru, Hinata, Sasuke and Kawaki step forward. Hiruzen continues and the 4 step forward, as the 2 fangirls want to squeal but remember who is here. The 4 of you have shown your skills and the council agrees that you should be promoted. With this promotion you have access to higher gates with stronger teams and access to higher ranked skills. Though for now you will remain with your current teams, Hiruzen states, and the 4 nod. Shikaku rises from his seat and hands each of them a scroll. Inside is your Chunin vests. Wear them with honor, he says, and all of them clap. Sasuke soaks it in with a smug look on his face, while Kawaki and Hinata have blank faces with Shikamaru sighing. Neji and the other congratulate Sasuke, Kawaki, Shikamaru and Hinata as Fuyumi sees Jiraiya approaching her. We need to talk, Jiraiya says. Kurenai sees this and approaches as Jiraiya looks to her with perversion in his eyes. Something wrong, Jiraiya-sama, she says. Yeah, we need to talk but not here, Jiraiya says and beckons for them to follow him to Hiruzen's office. Jiraiya opens the door and ushers the two inside. Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Since Kawaki is now a Chunin before you, I want him to be the head of the Namikaze clan, he says, shocking both Fuyumi but more so Kurenai. Jiraiya-sama, you can't be serious. Fuyumi is the firstborn after Naruto and his mother hasn't fully given up any claim to the Namikaze name, Kurenai says, defending her daughter. So, Kawaki was promoted to Chunin on his first try like Minato. She lost to some foreigner. Look, she can give up the Namikaze name and you can formally adopt her as a Yuhi, Jiraiya says. Fuyumi didn't know how to react to this as again she was compared to her brother, Jiraiya-sama. Why haven't you asked Naruto? By rights he is the head of the clan, she says, feeling a slight panic. Why would I ask that bitch's son? He doesn't live here and gave up the right to call himself Minato's son, Jiraiya snaps. Regardless, how can you expect Fuyumi to give up part of identity? Just because Kawaki has made Chunin, Kurenai says, on a verge of shouting and clenching her fists. Jiraiya scoffs with his arms folded with a dismissive look to Fuyumi and looks back to Kurenai, because Kawaki is the future, he shouts. He possesses the Mokuden and trained by me. Unlike Fuyumi, he's a prodigy, Jiraiya adds and Kurenai glares at him but he scoffs. Sensei agrees with me. Fuyumi would be better with no longer being heiress of the Namikaze clan, Jiraiya says. Fuyumi moves towards the window to look out the window as Kurenai and Jiraiya continue to argue about the matter. You know what, do it, make him the clan heir, Fuyumi says, suddenly and stops both from arguing. She turns to them with a few tears in her eyes but wipes them away. I'm done. If you want to make Kawaki the head of the Namikaze, then do it, Fuyumi says. Kurenai approaches Fuyumi and places her hand on her shoulder as Jiraiya simply scoffs. You finally doing something smart. I'll inform Sensei, he says. Kurenai and Fuyumi walk past Jiraiya with the former shooting a glare to the Toad Sannin. Are you sure? Kurenai asks, after they were out of Hiruzen's office. Yes, I'm just done, Fuyumi says and Kurenai slowly nods. News would quickly spread as the council would learn about Fuyumi abdicating the Namikaze name. Several would be content with this and would approve Fuyumi becoming Kurenai's legal daughter, fully as she is now Fuyumi Yuhi. The rookies would take it in various ways as Sakura and Ino were very happy Kawaki was now a full clan heir. Kiba, Sasuke, Hinata and Kawaki did not care in any. Shikamaru, Choji, Lee and Shino showed some concern about this change but didn't push things. The village as a whole would soon learn this from the civilian council spreading it, lavishing everything they could on Kawaki with not really caring what Fuyumi does as in their eye, she was no longer their Yondaime's daughter.